Welcome to Raw Conscious Talk Podcast. I am your host, Tammy Cheney. So, today is going to be part 2, and I am in the desert, not far from traffic though, so you may hear a little bit of traffic, but I am in the desert and I absolutely love it. So, this is going to be part 2, and I'm going to go ahead and start off from where I left off, and that was the man with the heavy boots. So that happened between, like I said, age 6 and 8, and then it just left. That's the only way I can describe it. It just, at some point in time, just never showed back up. So in that time, throughout, like I said before, since the time that I met that entity at 3 years old, that became a constant communication where I was nonstop communicating with this entity. Now, as life went on, you get to the age of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that age frame, well, I know personally for me, you're going to hear people talk about God and this man up in the sky. So for me, I thought that was who I was talking to. So eventually I named that entity God. So now I've learned so much more since then, and maybe I'll go into that at the end if I can remember to bring myself back there. But so as time went by, I just was in constant communication with who I called God. And once I got to middle school, and I just want to add that I never stopped having the out-of-body experiences. It was actually just completely normal in my life at that point. It was completely normal. I just assumed that this was all normal. So when I got into middle school, I had like a very small group of people. I wouldn't say they were friends, but we would be found, I guess, hanging out here and there. So I remember one day going into school, I don't know if I was in 7th or 8th grade, and I'm from Southwest Florida, so middle school for us down there was 6th, 7th, and 8th. Or I'm sorry, I got that backwards. Middle school in Florida was only 7th and 8th, but I guess most places it's 6th, 7th, and 8th. So I go into school and I go up to my friends because I had like this, and I can't tell you the experience, but I had this mind-blowing out-of-body experience like the night before. I don't know where I traveled to, but it was just so amazing that I could not wait to get to school to tell my friends. So I get there and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to tell you guys where I went last night. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And they're listening to me, and they're like, I could tell that, they're a little bit off with the way that they're looking at me. And I'm thinking, like, why are they looking at me this way? Like, this is super cool, And so I get done with everything that I'm saying, and I was like, so where did you travel last night? And they're like, yeah, I don't travel anywhere at night. When I go to bed, I just go to sleep. And I was like shocked. Like think of this little 7th or 8th grade. I mean, I know I was actually very developmentally delayed when I was in school. So definitely teenagers act a lot older now and more mature. But when I was a teenager, I was horribly developmentally delayed. Like the abuse and the neglect in the home that I was in, it was way too much for a child. And so So inside me, you know, I didn't show this to them. I was shocked. I could not believe that that's not something that everybody does. Or if they do it, they just don't remember. And so that was such a blow to me, because at that point I didn't know what to think anymore. I didn't understand, well, why am I leaving my body? Like, why am I traveling places? Like, my brain just could not even process it. And I would just continually be talking to God. And I remember saying to them, like, don't you guys talk to God every day? And they're like, no. I'm like, you don't talk to God every day? Like, I thought that was like the most important thing in the whole entire world was to be talking to God every day. It's the man up in the sky, you know, God. And so middle school is where I just slowly started to learn that what I was experiencing was not normal, and it was definitely something that people looked at you like you might be crazy. And so at that point on, I don't know what happened, but somehow I was able to shut the out of body experiences off. Now, I want to say that for me personally, and anybody can say how it is for them personally, but when I would have actual out of body experiences, I'd go through this feeling of tingle. I would feel like a shift, almost like a shifting from the tingling inside me, and I would literally feel the feeling of me separating from my body. So I knew every time I was leaving my body. So when I stopped having the out of body experiences, because I just somehow, because of how traumatized I was by the girl's answers, I guess, it shut off. But I've always, like I said in the first video, I learned how to just come out at will. I think I said that in the first video. If I didn't, I did. I learned how to just separate myself. And it wasn't an out-of-body experience because it would be something that I would do like throughout the day, during the day. I could do it, you know, if I'm at school, I could be walking in the line to go to the lunchroom and I could just leave. And my body would robotically still continue to do what it's supposed to do. That's the only way I can describe it. And I guess it could be considered sort of like what the medical definition is that they want to put on it is disassociation. But the thing is what they don't understand is when you leave, because when I leave the room, I'm literally just going right outside my body. I'm literally just right outside myself. But in that place that I'm in, I'm able to get downloads of information. That's the only way I can describe it. Like I would get a whole bunch of information, and I would be so separated from myself that I would not know that my body is robotically doing the motion of whatever it is that I needed to do. And so I would spend a lot of time just outside myself. In fact, throughout my entire childhood, from as soon as I learned that I could go right outside myself, I just did it. I just did it every day, all day. That's the only way I can describe it. I was leaving the room every chance that I got, and I never knew how long I was gone. I just know that where I was was definitely different than here, and where I was peace and joy and unconditional love. It was perfect. And so of course I would prefer to be there. And so when the doctors, tried to speak about like disassociation, I told them, I'm like, listen, when people disassociate, where do you think they go? And the doctors are like, nowhere. And I'm like, well, I go somewhere. I can leave myself and I go somewhere. I'm not, even though I'm just right outside my body, I go somewhere, and the neurologist was like shocked by what I was saying, but it's the truth, it's not nothingness, although some people might experience nothingness. But so that continued to go on. I shut down the out-of-body experiences, and I'm getting older in age, and by the time I make it to 18 years old, well, I moved out between 16 and 17. So at 18 years old, I was already fully on my own. I actually already had my first baby and my daughter. And so I was fully living on my own. And I don't know how this came up in my life and why it came up in my life, but you got to understand, I wasn't educated on nothing spiritual. I didn't grow up in the church, although a few times we did go on a church bus for Sunday school or whatever, and all I remember about that is the food, the candy, and the drinks or whatever they were giving us. So I decided to go get a Ouija board and see if it works. You see this on TV or whatever at that time, and I just wanted to see if it worked. So me and my friend at that time decided that we were going to go out to like a park or something like that, way in the woods, back in some wooded area, and see if this board works. So her and I get to this park. We sit at like one of the little picnic tables. We set up the board, and we're both like, okay, let's do this, So we both put our hands on the eyepiece, and literally the eyepiece took off and just started going like all over the board. And me and my friend are like, we're looking at each other shocked, and we're like, are you doing that? And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. The thing is what people don't understand is there's an energy, and maybe people understand. I don't know. I didn't know this. I truly just learned this, with a download that I got. But when you put your hand on that eyepiece, there's an energy connection that happens, and that's what pushes that eye, or pulls that. It doesn't push, it pulls. So when you have that eyepiece in your hand and you got your hand on it, it pulls away from you, almost out of your hand. So it's some sort of energy. It's an energy exchange with that eyepiece. Well, long story short, when that happened, my mind was blown. And the main reason why my mind was blown is that was actually physical proof to show that there's more than just the here and now, and that these places that I go to, my out-of-body experiences that, now I think, is something crazy because, of the reaction that I got, I knew now for sure that there was something more than just this. And so my whole life changed at that time. And I only used that Ouija board for a period of time and then got rid of it. I've never had another Ouija board again. I just don't think that that's my road to go, because I have this connection already that I'm well aware of. I don't need the board to give me physical proof. So here I'm 18. I go through that experience, and then I am at the age of 24. I was exactly 24 years old. And I was living in this home that was for women that were pregnant, that needed help, basically. And so, while I was at this home, it ended up being a Christian based thing. So you had to go to church on Sunday. So here now I'm about to go to church for truly more like the first time in my life. So I go to this church because I think I'm going to finally meet people like me. This is where I have to go to find the people like me that know about, all the activity outside our physical self. And so I get in there and I am just honestly clueless of how this all works. I just went and sat and, watched the people, listened to what the man had to say on stage. And so after about 3 weeks of going there and still just completely being clueless, trying to understand what these people are talking about, because it didn't make sense to me of what I know and what I've always known. And so, but at the end of every service, there would be, the man on the stage would say, if anybody wants to accept God back into their heart or accept him now in their heart, and I'm thinking in my head, okay, so I've always talked to God, but I did shut something down in middle school. I was well aware that I shut a part of me down. So I thought that was what I needed back. So I went up to the front of the stage and did the whole ritual that they do. And I actually had an experience. So my experience was when I went to go open my eyes, and after the lady came over and prayed over me, I all of a sudden saw there was this veil. That's the only way I can describe it, a veil. I could see through it, but it was very foggy. There was this veil in front of me, this white veil. And I wasn't sure what was going on, but because I was used to spiritual, the being on the other side, it felt similar. So I felt comfortable to relax into what was happening. So as I'm trying to look through this veil, it begins to rise up, almost roll up like a scroll. That's the only way I can describe it. And as it rolled up, I began to see the other side of that curtain, which was still the stage that man was standing on and talking to all of us. And but how I was seeing it was no longer, the only way I can describe it is, before it was dull, and that's how I was seeing it through my eyes, but now it's bright and vibrant and just the most beautiful scenery in front of me that I've ever seen. And I'm just blown away. So I look, next to me to see if these people, the other people that came up to the stage, were having the same experience. And I could tell, I knew instantaneously that they were not having the same experience. That I was connected to something, and these people here were all disconnected from that something. And I turn and I look at the audience that's there, and I could tell that none of them had ever, it's like I had this knowing that none of these people in here are experiencing what I'm experiencing, nor have they ever. I just had this knowing. And so not only did I know that, but I all of a sudden knew, and I can't put this into words, this is the only way I can describe it, I all of a sudden knew everything in the world. I knew everything, and I honestly can't put it into words. I'm actually working on putting it into words because it's inside me and I can see it, but I can't produce it. And that's the only way I can describe it. So I had that profound experience, and this is actually where I'm going to stop at, because 2 weeks later, I had an even just one of the most powerful, profound experiences 2 weeks later. And I'm going to save that for the next one. But I just want to say again, I am truly so grateful and thankful that you watched my video, and I'm truly grateful and thankful to all those who subscribe to my channel, like and share. I mean, I would absolutely love if you could share this video. I would absolutely love for people to hear what has been inside me that I just want to share with the world. And so I just want to say, have a great rest of your day. I'm going to have a great rest of my day, and I'm going to do this again tomorrow.